really, really cool. Because obviously people are stopping in to get the more formal broadcast experience, which hopefully we can continue as a niche. And yeah, and if you do miss this, in terms of miss this live, you will be able to see it on our YouTube. But right now, you will be able to see it live on this stream. As we go into Game 2 of WE versus BLG. Comeback story from BLG in Game 1. They got a bit mashed around in the early game when they went for the early skirmishes. Credit for WE from that. But WE couldn't close against Knight and Elk. Knight walked away with Talia MVP in Game 1, but Elk on that Dragon Smolder in the bot lane was so powerful.
The draft strategy been pretty similar here, though it will be Fofo's Hui that is the first change up of the draft so far. Will we see the additional Lucian ban here to get rid of that trifecta of early game AD carries off the board? WE have something else they want to ban. The Nautilus, I think, was the other ban that was banned away on red side last time. Oh, so it's the Karma this time.
It wasn't banned away in this one. It was banned in the first series because On was playing the Nautilus and things got a little weird. Yes. I wonder whether we're going to get ourselves another Viego game because from one of these teams, because we're seeing a lot of very scrappy skirmish fights. If you're playing scrappy skirmishes, Viego kind of just wins you the game because you get one reset and then things go terribly from that point. Nico first lock in from Knight. We talked about how Knight walked away with the MVP from Game 1. The Nico was banned from him in last game, and this is one of the picks where he has made some real magical moments follow. Last year was a meta of stuff like Ahri, Annie, Nico, which could all force fights very quickly from the mid lane. It's an engaged champion, which a lot of mid laners haven't had to test themselves on this year so far, but this one has survived, and Knight is one of the very best at it.
I did see a little bit of Annie turning up in ERLs, which is not tier 1, basically because Malignance was allowing ult on cooldown. It's ridiculous. It was so fast to get Tibbers back up and available. Sometimes you get it twice in a fight occasionally if you get enough ability. It's pretty silly. Anyway, as it stands, the Nautilus lock is very early on here. Hung had a great game on the Xin Sao, but did get a lot of the kills and kind of failed to keep up the damage check as the game went on. So instead, the Talia is locked in. It's a takeaway from Knight, who, as we said, played out the mid-late game on the champion very well at the least.
Yeah, Fofo gets himself a global champion into that mid lane, which is something that has been coming back in a little bit more force. We've seen, of course, the Twisted Fate banned away a little bit with the ADTF. APTF is actually pretty okay right now too. I think it has been nerfed because when you had, you know, Lichbane, Rod of Ages, it was just way too much. On now going towards the Alistar, very confident in the Alistar Nautilus matchup, and it means that you can be the better tank than the Nautilus. What this means now is that if you're going towards a Viego comp on either side, which I wonder actually if it's going to be banned away or picked here on third, the Alistar is harder to take down for that first kill. So even if you lock it here from Hung now, a little bit difficult to reach the Smolder, very hard to kill the Alistar, so maybe it de-incentivizes them picking it. They could go towards the Xin Zhao to have the other of the temporary frontline champions. That makes a lot of sense, because now suddenly, if you have an engage from Alistar and Xin Zhao at the same time, both of them pop their ultimates and you're kind of at parity. We've seen a lot of this. Wait, when was the last time we saw this? 2021, we saw this a lot around, well, all of that year, actually, where both these champions were actually much stronger with the duration of their ultimates and how big they were. What this means is that you don't have to play a tank. You play around your ultimate being your tank.
That's exactly what you need to do, because you just managed to just say no. It's a bit like Gwen W. Xin Sao's immune, because you're not inside his Thunderdome.
That it is. So it is actually this is actually quite similar to 2021 meta. Now, of course, the Nico's a bit different, right? Because that was changed heading into 22. No, 23 maybe. 23, I think it's 23. Sometime around there. But of course, one of the other big things we've got in here as well is that you have the Smolder. We talked about this a lot last game, but if you're catching up into coming into this game as well, the problem here from Team WE is that you have ways to force fights and ways to start moving across the map. But if BLG leave AD carry versus AD carry on an island, Smolder gets to stack. Yep. If you try and dive them in a 2v2, well, no, you can't, because it's an Alistar. Alistar is one of the hardest champions to dive in the game. As long as you get to survive through to your first 3 levels, Smolder is going to be completely fine. And because Smolder can start with W and Doran's Ring, they're pretty much always going to get to level 2. You can't deny them that. So this is the problem with Smolder. You're outscaled, you can't dive, you can't roam away from them because then they scale up for free. What do? W at least removes some of the more skirmishy picks from BLG to hold up the top side. Maybe they just have to snowball through top side.
I think also the fact that Smolder has actually got access to the wave more than people thought he might on before his release when he was on PB, because the fact you can just W a wave, you can actually still affect the wave from a long way away. It makes you quite difficult to deny stacks. The Zeri locked in for stay, as with all of the LDL AD carries, as with pretty much every AD carry. They've got a lot of time on the champion, they know what they're doing with it. Try to match the scaling a little bit where you can, But Shun will pick up a classic for him in the jungle. It's not the Nidalee, but it's the other side of the coin. We get another Kindred game
Could
today.
also be a classic for Bin. Renekton had some pretty big buffs coming into this patch. We've seen it played a couple of times already across the LPL. Particularly the Q healing buff is pretty big from this champion. So now Wayward has counterpick in top side. Renekton, though, is just really quite strong right now. You can pick a lane counter. Will it counter the composition? If you pick someone like a Darius, yeah, it wins the lane, but it's going to be really hard to get to the backline targets, and it's going to be really hard to get through the Renekton all the same, and the Alistar in the team fight, so you can't really go for the lane counter. So he says, okay, I'm going to play the Gragas, it'll survive lane, and hopefully just displace the team a little bit, and hopefully deny someone like Alistar being able to stand around in a team fight, and most importantly, stop the Kindred ultimate being able to save the carries that you do get on top of with something like the Nautilus.
Gragas into Kindred is a very old school and studied matchup. Normally that used to be in the jungle, but of course Gragas these days has moved more towards the solo lanes with the way things have worked out. Somewhere out there, Niski crying that he can't really play it in mid lane as much as he did. Was very, very good at that champion.
Yes. So, Team WE, this is a harder draft for them. Now, last game, I thought it was pretty even as far as things went. Now, you had some worries about the Smolder, but as we saw, Team WE, they fought blow for blow early game. I think this game, BLG walk away with a much happier draft. I think you've got Bin on a champion which he is very confident on. He was maybe the best Renekton in the LPL. I think it was between him and 369. Probably 369 was actually pipped into the post there, but still one of the very best in the world and one of the very best at this. He'll have early game presence. He'll have mid-game power spike as well. You tend to go towards the Black Cleaver and the Sundered Sky as the Renekton, as opposed to going something more Tiamati, as we sometimes used to see in the past, and of course no Guine Spike whip items in the game either at this point. Rest of the map, though, really feels like you got to worry about that ticking time bomb with the dragon in the bot side, and particularly with missing on Alistar, it's going to be very hard to get to that Smolder.
Yeah, it definitely is, and you've kind of like, you have got ways to get to the Smolder, in fairness. The Xin Sao, the Nautilus, the Talir, even the Grags, the Disruption. You can dive and look for it. It's just, Smolder has got Flash, Ghost, Flat, Mum to come in and heal him and save him and throw a slowdown on enemy teams. You've got the Alistar front line. There's a Lamb for Spite.
So this is the thing. The Smolder is an identity. Everything you just mentioned there, yes, you can still get onto him at that point. I want him maybe trying to look to force a flash at this point. The problem is, how do you get through an ulting Alistar? How do you get through Nico buying you space? Knight last year on JDG was fantastic at looking at his AD carry and Ruler that year and saying, if I just use an ult to buy space while the engage is coming on to counter engage, then this game goes very, very well. WE need a strong early game, starting with the E on the Xin Sao. Wayward, he's trying to block off his jungler.
Kindred is normally very good in the early game because of how much damage they can do from such a long way away, but part of the problem they're finding is Xin Sao's also excellent, but the whole rotation comes on through from BLG. A 3-man body slam might buy some space. How many flashes are we going to have to see popped as Wayward just stands in here, gets a grass, goes on forward, Bin flashes away, and Kindred gets first blood in the mark. Shun off to the races already. Lamb looking more like the wolf half of Kindred.
Here comes Elk!
Stay and Elk are here as well. What on earth is happening? Shun hops over the wall, flashes away from Wayward's attempted body slam, and stays alive. It's a 2 for 2 as blood is smeared all over the blue side of BLG's jungle.
I thought it was 2024. I think it's actually the year 40,000, because when the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war, blood for the blood god, and skulls for the skull throne abound as Korn is happy with the praises towards him. 2 kills to Shun's Kindred, though. Yep. What are you going to do about that? As you called out very rightfully, Mark already secured, which is a problem. 2 kills, gets to go back onto the map with a longsword and a dagger well on the way towards a noon quiver. Their first clear is not even going to be slowed down that much because they're going to be so strong after they start clearing. Bin starts with a W, actually, gets a micro stun. It's not going to be able to get like the big Qs at the start of this, but it's absolutely fine. This is an absolute mess, though. W realize that they have bought into this play. They momentarily have a numbers advantage here. They have Stay Up here, who goes onto the Zeri, who, of course, has to start with a Q level 1. You can't actually do it. You can't actually level anything else. And this momentary numbers advantage is what ends up buying them just enough damage to at least go back 2 for 2 before Elk gets involved. It's still a 2 for 2, which I still favor, though, on the side of BLJ. Is 2 kills for Iwandi, who hasn't even managed to back for any items. It's fine that he can do that after first back, but Elk and On, they're not exactly going to be worried at the first stage of lane.
That was catastrophic for summoner spells. Well, there are only 2 people on the rift right now with an active flash, and that's Elk for BLG and Fofo on Talia. Everyone else had to burn that summoner spell, which means there's a lot of very vulnerable people wandering around the map, and a 2-kill Kindred could definitely look to abuse that, but so honestly could Xin Zhao. There's a lot of people here who would really like to get some value out of that.
Ben uses the Empowered W to get a bit of a trade there onto Wayward, who's going a bit more tanky, and Ben on this Renekton champion, we saw a lot from him in 2023. This player was so powerful on this. He's not had the greatest of 2024 so far. This game, with the early leads in topside, is great for him to work with.
Lion Iwandi, who finally gets to go back after claiming the 2 kills for WE, and straight away buys Swiftness boots to try and immediately leverage the advantage of the Nautilus early in lane.
And look exactly what he's doing. He's not actually about the advantage in lane right now. He's roaming onto the map. It's not Mobies. He's gone for the Swiftness boots, which can help against the small to slow as well. I think this is what you've got to do. Stay being caught out here is kind of awkward, though. He has to cleanse.
I don't think he's got anywhere to go. He couldn't get to the wall because it was body blocked away, and it loses him 80% of his HP bar.
And that's now awkward. Now he has to come back bot lane, you feel. He has to reset immediately, but these Swiftness boosts he's using to snowball the rest of the map. No flash on Bin.
There's no flash anywhere, really. As we've just been talking about, is they're going to just murder away the Crocodile. A new pair of boots to match Iwandi's ones he bought for first, but he's got the 3rd kill as well. He's starting a collection, guys!
Oh man, this anchor might be holding him down, but he is carrying it all the same. Like he's carrying this game. Oh my god! Team WE, one of the earliest orgs ever into the LPL, one of the greatest teams back when they were Team World Elite as well, have hit 13,000 kills in the LPL in history, and it's through Iwandi getting 3 kills in the early game.
Absolutely phenomenal. Many years since arguably the greatest AD carry player to ever grace the Rift in Wei Xiao found his mark on Ezreal on WE. Now we're in a game where Iwandi finds a 13,000th kill for the organization on Nautilus, having claimed all of the early kills for an organization. Extraordinary stuff.
Team World Elite have been playing all the way since 2011.
No.
And they had Messiah, they've had Wei Xiao, they've had, of course, so many great players.
Here we go.
They're looking for a fight around topside.
Oh, exactly that. The story time leads us into more violence. That'll be the 13,001st kill for the organization, claimed by Wayward. And then we're back towards the grubs.
I have loved this series. I love the fact that we are seeing so many more of these engaged supports and this ability to just walk out on the map. In fact, the biggest thing I've talked about the LPL, the biggest change has been what has happened with the bot lane and the support meta. And I think stuff like this Nautilus is so important for a lot of our supports. You see that Iwandi might even channel his stop channeling his recall. In fact, he finally leaves the top lane of the map alone, and he'll return back onto the map.
I think he needs to extend his name. He needs to be more like Iwandi's kills right now. This guy is just monster.
For a second, I thought it was Iwandi's nuts.
I was avoiding doing that, but you know, you're right. You should have been that. You're right. I'm sorry. I disappointed you.
Occasionally, I've sat there like, oh yeah, on an official broadcast, we could do what we want here. Stay has no flash. He has no hope.
He's got
and
a flash
he's
very
going to
shortly,
die.
but it's not going to save him. He just sits there and takes the pain. Oh wait, that's a good wall run. When's the flash up? Surely no flash forward from Elk secures it. But look who else is here. It's Iwandi and the side, of course, of Hung on the Xin Zhao. Elk trying to buy some space and time. It was a decent headbutt away, but surely there will be an audacious shot. But then the flap, flash for the stun. Not a 5th kill. Surely not. Don't give it to me. No. Iwandi, why would you get a 4th kill?
4 out of 5 kills on this support. Shun going mid lane onto the flashless Talia might just be able to get the kill, but not quite enough damage. That wall run from Stay just about buys enough time for the player to work out in bot side. BLG, once again, being held blow for blow in the early game. Team WE, they will need to try and capitalize, which was the problem in last game, but they are ahead once again. 2 games for 2 right now against BLG.
I'm just saying, if this was solo queue, this Nautilus would immediately be building damage.
Man's going in with a Lich Bane or Iceborne Gauntlet or something. I mean, the thing is, you just need those support items to help the rest of your team. The fact that he has so much gold is one thing, but because the supports are roaming so much, they're very low level. He has no flash now, he has no combat stats really, and he's going to get himself a death onto the board.
Shutdown to give over, he's only level 3, so that's just gold
700
over
gold.
to Xin Zhao.
700 gold over to Shun on that Kindred. He's going to get a buff steal, and suddenly that Nautilus, the snowball might go against him. Bin stacking up the rage with his ult early, looking to dive. Poor Wayward.
Oh, he's looking like he is dead to rights. Wayward flash, headbutt, pulverize Wayward. immediately put towards the dirt. Goes bedward, as you said in the last game.
Put to sleep once again. Bin able to feed overkill, and I wonder he's back. He's never left. The anchor returns. Be fearful. Walks back onto the map and tries to get something done. But this is something that we saw obviously in previous seasons of League. It's been a while since we've seen so much Lucian Nami, so much Renata on the map, so much of the Enchanter supports. You can just leave lane and try and snowball the map as these engaged supports. Once you have your basic kit, you have a lot of impact. You're slowing down your ultimate timing, which is pretty bad. At least in this game, you're not going to be feeding kills over to a Viego, which might win the fight with resets afterwards. But it's still now going to be a bit of a worry that Iwandi might be a target now because of the low levels he has.
Both supports scored at level 4 because they've been out of lane more than in it. Iwandi here will find On, who will headbutt away, having pulverized first. But where is everyone going? Away, apparently, from this little skirmish for now. Seismic Shove dodged away from. Stay comes wall riding on in. Man, that dredge line was closed. I was about to have to keep going, and I honestly thought that hook was going to hit. I'm not going to lie.
Not this time. Most of them have. Mike goes back in towards the mid lane. Haven't really seen him get the big ultimates into play yet. This is actually where WE need to be quite afraid. You have a Renekton in the point of their power who is going towards a Tiamat item. It's not going to be the Sundered Sky or the Black Cleaver early on. And you do have Nico as well, at the point which we were just saying. Knight hasn't really had the big up chance to, in fact, teamfights yet. I think at this point, top side of the map from BLG is starting to look at WE and saying, yeah, I can take that fight.
Oh, yes, they are. And as we've kind of seen as well, the fact that it's Shun that's got the kills compared to the Nautilus, which, you know, the jokes aside, it's not the best gold distribution, let's be real, especially when all of them basically are on your support. Maybe, though, Iwandi can make some use of it by making these kind of plays happen as On gets pulled into a land for a spike, keeps him alive. Hung still trying to play his one out. The Pop Blossom comes on through, gets a stun onto Fofo, not too much more. Flash forward from Wayward does finally secure the kill, but Bin now getting into the backside, looking to get some value. It's a decent cast, but look at Wayward, who's going so low. Get picked up. Shun gets his 4th kill of the game. WE need to retreat. It's a 1-for-1, all things said and done.
And it's both top laners getting involved at this point. Knight didn't have Flash or Protobelt to really secure that ultimate, but this is something which we've seen Knight do. Just use that ult to secure a landing point for your carries and for people that need the peel. He's a very talented team fight mid laner, is Knight on something picks like the Nico in regards to how his teammates need him to use that ultimate. It's not the biggest moment. It was something that we'll just track a little bit longer. As On and Knight once again on the same screen. On also very low in levels too. He needs his ultimate really to be the huge front line, and because both of these supports have been roaming so much, they will come online much later.
A whole set of grubs picked up. I think it's now a split of 3-3. We'll have a look at this replay again.
On is the only person who can really start to face check here. In fairness to him, it's not even face checking at this point. It's just Iwandi once again pulling out big old hook. On tries to stick around and to get some CC at the back end of this. Doesn't quite track Wayward coming down though. Maybe could have just once you're that HP, I think you just back off. On having a bit of a disrespectful series. His laning phase has been good. He's had some great plays later into the game, but he's also had a couple of stinkers too, in a way where he's just not quite realized the amount of damage which can come back onto him. Hopefully he can stabilize a little bit more as the game goes on.
4-kill Kindred, building towards a collect a second. It's been the kind of standard build as it stands. Of course, Milky Way could tell you all about it. He had a whole, what's the word, like
guide.
Yeah, guide that was on the main LDL broadcast. So that was back in days when he would just go, yeah, like crack and slay into Infedge Bloodthirster for the greediest Kindred build you could possibly imagine with the amount of gold required to make it, but still going to be going towards that. Bin takes the opportunity to get a couple plates topside. Wayward doesn't really have a lot to say about this, especially as a tank Gragas.
Well, you say that, has a lot of percent HP damage, ults him back into turret. Bin might have to ult as it comes back up. He uses his Q on the wave, his ult's coming up in a few seconds. Kindra's on the top side of the map, here comes the Dominus.
This is quite a lot of damage, you're right. I think I just underestimated Barmy's value. Somewhere out there, Orcs is shaking his head. He knows better than I do on that one, apparently, as Bin still gets out of dodge, but that cost him quite a lot as bot side. Huge amount of damage onto Elk, who does manage to get away from the Nautilus hook. They can't quite get in range. There's a shock through the wave, but the lightning crash just isn't enough damage, and Elk emotes. He knows he's managed to outplay it.
Very important that Smolder managed to survive on the bot side of the map. No gold going over to this Seri, who will also be looking to scale up into the game. Problem is, it feels like Smolder just scales just that bit harder, and the fact that they can't shut him down cleanly there is a little annoying. He's going to give himself a reset. It is still going to be a wave lost to tower all the same. BLG on the other side, they stole away some stuff on the top side of the map. Shun at 4-0, very, very strong. And he is going towards what you would call a greedy build. I'd call it a correct build.
Oh, yes.
Because if you're looking at this other team, you look at the Gragas and like, well, he might get a bit tanky. What about everyone else? Shun, he can be a real damage carry, particularly using the space that Renekton, Nico, and Alistair can buy in the team fight.
Yeah, for the record, I'm perfectly on board with the greedy build. It's how I play Kindred, and it's a lot of fun. I'm not a very good Kindred, though. I tend to like interweigh my leads. These guys don't, and I think especially when you're being asked to be a hard carry and be the kind of player doing...
You said it now. Next fight, Shun's going to get completely bought by Wayward, punted out of his ult.
It's the Gragas ult and Doom in. Yeah, that's it. Called it now. Fair enough. All right, well, the curse is in, guys. I apologize to Shun in advance.
We will see exactly what he can do. Stay now on the bot side turret. He doesn't have flash. He has an E and he has an I1D backing him up. How many kills does this Nautilus have? Can it save him? Just about this time with the help of a flash.
That was a full locket early on in the game, and that actually could prove very valuable in some of these early skirmishes. The big AoE shield coming in clutch. Many a fight. Here's one of the things that actually supports with gold. Getting to some of those really key active items can be quite potent as long as your carries are online as well.
Stay.
That was the close.
That was the close. I was sat there. I was like, what's happening there? Sometimes it can be a little bit confusing at that point. Elk close to getting himself towards the Essence Reaver, which is of course a very big spike for him because it gives him a lot of crits and then also gives him a lot of cooldown reduction on hitting a lot of damage. He'll have to reset after that one. Finally hit level 6. Everyone will be pleased to hear. And now suddenly he doesn't have to be paper. It can be Rock and wait, Rock loses the paper. What's happening?
Well, I'll have to cut through this particular analogy and leave it where it is. As the Herald being started. Moving on swiftly from that very dumb joke, we'll go to see the Herald taken down by WE.
So I1D back out onto the map. He's using his Swifty Boots very effectively. And again, the big thing about... I'm going to mention this every game until people get the damn point. If you have melee supports, you get better vision control. They're much better at face checking. They're much better at putting down those odd wards which someone can teleport onto to win a fight. When you have Nikos and Renektons and Gragases, oh my, you can get yourself into points where those wards put by melee supports can lead to the solo laners ending the game through a good enough teleport. Watch to see what happens now with those red walls just being littered into the enemy jungle and see how well the sweepers are going across the other side too. Can give angles to the solo laners on both sides of this game to really make a difference.
Oh boy, well, that might have to be the question because the difference once again has been relatively minimal in these early games. 6-6 in the kills, Grubs traded evenly. There's a dragon towards WE, but a slight gold lead towards BLG. So all things said and done, the scales are pretty evenly matched as it stands. The difficulty then comes into who scales better. I'm looking at a Kindred with early kills and marks, and a Smolder who's been left alone a lot this game. Yeah. That should worry you with WE, I think.
And then you have the Crocodile, who also has scales. They might get ripped off on top side if they look for a bad fight. It'll have been, however, with Titanic Hydra, the level 11 as well, I can't remember if new Tiamat items work the same way that they used to, where they could actually break the auto attack animation of the W. Yeah. You could do that with Ravenous Hydra. I'm pretty sure that Titanic couldn't do that, but still. Very important now that Bin has that power spike. Very important that Stay has no flash right now, potentially getting forced onto.
Away. Will Lightning crash down and keep himself alive, down to about 30% HP though as a result of it all. It will cost them an ultimate, which is a little bit alarming, but stays alive despite all of the attention towards him. And you were saying, the scales on next. I didn't realize there's a fish.
Crocodile skin. Yeah, technically they don't have scales. This is like the lizard, the crocodile skin. It's a little bit different. They look like it though.
I like actually. Do lizards have scales? I don't think
some of them do.
Yeah, some of them do. Yeah.
So like bearded dragons and stuff. They have them. Well, do they?
Snakes do.
Yeah, true.
But they're not lizards. They're reptiles.
I can't remember the difference all the time.
I remember the order of classification.
Quick talk about this as well. Elk now sat on 118 stacks, very close to the second upgrade, very close to getting that. In fact, it's another one there jumping forward onto the Shinzao. Not always the best place for that dragon to be. He does go forwards and potentially help take down this Herald. It will get the charge and all the same. Not quite able to be cut down by BLG.
Exactly that. Towards Dragon, RWE now considering going. This will be the second of the game. It's not the fastest dragon stacking we've ever seen. It would still get them towards that kind of critical 2-dragon point, which is often a potent point of the game. Teleports behind though.
These are the wards.
Here we go. This is what they didn't have last game. Small ultimate not that valuable, but Stay! Caught out as Knight once again gets to the backside. Will manage to spark surge over the wall, but he's out of the fight. Wayward and Hung trying to run out. Knight on the other side, perhaps stayed a little bit too long as Fofo finds an opportunity to turn around. The hook afterwards from I1D, solid work. And BLG don't secure the kills, and actually the turnaround from WB has been excellent, but look into the backside goes Bin, who slices, dices, and culls the Meek. The Lamb's Respite comes on time, buying a little bit of space and time, but Shun flashing on out, doesn't have enough to work with, and Fofo gets a double at the end of that one. Shun plays Bin to so much work. The Seraph Shield is good. Big Q to heal up, but they just can't cull enough. And the Ruthless Predator is finally brought back down. Another pair of boots for Fofo.
And it feels like that should have been the game-ending flank from Knight, but he can't finish the job. It's Wayward who then disrupts the play well enough for BLG to be on the retreat. WE, they win the fight, they get the dragon, and they're going to start now getting beyond this item power spike points from BLG. They're getting towards the 2 item points onto their carries, which will be where they can start winning these fights again. It's a great teleport from Knight. We talked about the melee supports helping this, but stays too close to the wall. He immediately cleanses out of the stun, gets over the wall, so they don't even get that first kill. And then you look at this cask coming onto Knight as well. He is completely out of the play. No extra damage coming in from that Nico. Huge amount of damage has come across onto a couple of the players now. On can't really be the front line. Elk's in a really poor position to try and get out DPS. Once he flies over the wall, he's out of range to DPS effectively. The whole team of BLG feels like they can't quite find the pockets to do the big DPS, and that gives WE enough time to bide their time for the next round of cooldowns and finish the fight.
It's excellent. Elk just about survives. Remember, I think the dragon's about to take him down at the end of it. He's stuck in the pit. He finally gets to flap away, and that last auto nearly did him in. And then Bin, he's a big crocodile. He's just not quite big enough, and it's looking more like a Monster Hunter game here.
If this was the old Gore Drinker Renekton, maybe he kills everyone there. But this is not the same state of Renekton. He has been buffed. He's not quite at the same level of power, which he used to be all the same, though. And DLG, they are now behind in another early game. WE, they've got a lot of objectives to their name, and they will have to once again wait and see whether Elk and Knight can bail them out of this.
Well, there's no Renata in the game, so that ability's not over to them. It just
so
it'll just have to be instead straight up gold play. And that was a shutdown that was going over as well from Shun's end. I'm not sure who picked it up. I think it was Fofo.
Fofo picked up a lot of those kills. I think he ended up getting the triple kill out of that one.
He bought a full Leandris afterwards, so I think he must have gotten a fair amount of gold off the 3 kills. So
which is a bit of an issue now for BLG, because they don't have a huge amount of magic resist. They do have a couple of HP stackers, though, which are going to get hit by this all the same. So this is going to be a point in time where Fofo can be kind of the dominant damage carry. I think when we get to 3 items, Elk will turn over in terms of the DPS again. But it's a long time waiting now for BLG to try and get to that point. He's not even at 2 items yet. Feels like WE, this is their point of power. BLG going to have to turtle again, slow things down, and try and get to a point where they can play around the Smolder late game. They don't even have the Viego resets this time as another win condition.
And again, you know, it's worth noting that we saw this last game, right? Elk was kind of down, a little bit quiet on the Smolder and came back later on. It was W in the mid game that were running the show, but the scaling came on through, the Smolder came online, and quick as you like, the game started turning around very heavily in BLG's favour. They might have to do that again in this one. Another early game that's been scrappy to say the least. Hook lands, this time onto Shun, gets knocked up, still doesn't quite have opportunity to use the ultimate, just about gets it down, but the other way out, the healing comes on through, manages to hop away, but not far enough to get around, and he's drunk under the table by Wayward's Gragas. Wayward now tries to get out from under the tower, Knight's coming on over in the form of the Renekton. Bin on the other side will make sure that they know that that is not the real Renekton as the Achus come on flying, but what's that gonna do? And they go right back towards the mid lane. Tower falls. WE win the fight.
Elk doesn't have the items just yet. In a later game fight, Wayward dies for that. But WE, they have the damage right now. They know their power spikes, and BLG get caught flat-footed. No jungler, no chance to fight with this, really. It's on a Knight to get a fantastic flash ultimate, but the body blockers of Iwandi and Wayward are stopping that being easy.
And of course, this time around, the DPS is just so much faster. The wall comes on down to block off any attempt on a mid lane push. And Unfentil flank behind it. But now BLG are here to try and play this one out down to 2,000 HP. The smite should surely come on through. The flash forward to try and get in on the Pot Blossom does succumb forward from Knight, who gets something. Wayward likely falling. But that is a paltry trade for the Baron. The cask nearly gets him out to say we're safety. But Wayward still falls in the end.
If they could get 2 kills, it's something. Getting only the 1, even though Fofo didn't have that flash at the end of it, is a really shocking turn of events for BLG. They get absolutely mashed in the mid lane, and WE waste no time in getting back out onto the map. Fofo teleports down towards the bot side, of course. If he died, that would have been a great shutdown. It would have stopped him from doing this as well and controlling the map. Elk now has 2 items, and that's closer towards the 3 item mark where we think maybe BLG can start turning things around, but WE, for now, are in real dominant position.
With the Infernal Dragon spawning in 40 seconds as well, that will put them to sole point, and they are the ones who are going to have the run of the map right now, so BLG's ability to put down vision that's been so critical this series, and then look to contest feels very limited, and now Knight kind of in a potentially precarious position. On is around alongside Elk and Bin as they come to try and defend this tier 2. I just don't think they really have a lot to say about the wave clear here.
Bin at 2 items, but he hasn't been able to be the difference maker either. It felt like the 1 item mark in those fights were where BLG had to make a stand. Since they've kind of flubbed them, they're waiting for the late game. This leads into another conversation which we've had about the LPL as a whole. Now, there are a couple of conversations which we've had. One was about the support changes, but the other big one is, hey, a lot of LPL teams are very imprecise right now. They're learning how to play the game. We thought that BLG were the team that were the furthest ahead on that. Evidently, that is not the case. They are still very imprecise. They go for players, but the execution's not there yet. Last year, felt like your teams like JDG and BLG, they were very, very good at understanding the game to the point where if you made a mistake, they'd punish you within split seconds. It's not really the same case this year right now, as BLG feels like they're really getting caught off by WE and how they're able to force these fights. I think Wayward, he's had a good game 1, couldn't finish that one out. Now I think it's Fofo that's really had the stellar game in the second game alongside Iwandi, who's been good in both of them. Team WE punishing BLG for their impreciseness. Or imprecision, better word for it. Now the Taliyah ult comes through.
Speaking of imprecision, exactly. In fairness, I say that I did call Shun's out earlier this game, so yeah, there was some. There is some imprecision, but I didn't get a chance to apologise earlier. But there you go, it's there. It was.
I have
like,
to say, if you're apologising for it, sometimes it's just like no, own it. You confidently say it. So, that man now is now Shun's out.
The reason is because he had the mark for Shun's out on the scoreboard, like on the health bar. So I just went to Shun and then Zhao after, because it was after the thing. I just went on autopilot and went, wait, no, that's wrong.
And, I don't do this all the time, but looking back in chat as well, just want to chat about the Kindred build, because someone's saying, hang on, is it right that the Collector's been built up second on Shun? I think when you were ahead in the game, I think it's fantastic, because you don't have the point yet where you have, second arm Writing coming in from Hung, you don't have a very fed Nautilus. As soon as you give early kills over to the Nautilus, so he has armor, and then suddenly Hung gets over to second item for the Frozen Heart as well. I think this Collector now feels pretty bad. The problem is, Lord Dominus Regard is not a great second item. You really want that third. So I think it's one of these points where you're just like, what do I build second? Well, Collector's a good second item, and you don't really know what else would fill that gap if you're actually behind in the game and you have to hit the tanky front line.
Yeah, and the thing is, he wasn't behind. He was 4-0, so it makes a lot of sense there. And I think the other thing you've got to remember is the Collector works so well with the Mounting Dread on Kindred. If you can get those 3 auto attacks off on someone with that E mark on them, you can do a lot of execute damage there to really take them out. But as you said, now that they've fallen behind, they're not at the LDR spike. The Collector feeling a little more awkward than it might have done 10 minutes ago.
Elk almost at 3 items, going towards the Lord Dominus Regard himself, and he is beyond 225 stacks now, at about 230, so the burn damage is in. Iwandi doesn't have flash, might get CC'd up here, and Elk does have damage. Not everyone on WE is present, but they will have globals coming in.
Wayward over the back here, can try and do some work as On gets a headbutt away. The knockup comes onto Shun, but to little avail. Hung needs to be a little bit afraid as Fofo throws down some unraveled earth from inside the Dragon Pit. And reminder, this would be a soul for the side of WE if they can ever get a hold of it. That's 2 minutes away for now, and it is WE that are fiercely contesting the vision.
If you check on the HUD as it's being shown right now as well, we do have 4 of those Kindred stacks. Knight hidden as a cannon minion. It's pretty obvious that there's a second one there. You should be counting these minions. Should know that he's walking up. There's only 3 cannon minions on the map, but still, BLG, at least they haven't completely fallen out of this game. They're only 3,000 gold behind at 27 minutes. It's a good amount, but it's not game ending. If it was 7,000, it would be really hard to fight back from this. But BLG, they've held on. It's not really the story that they would have wanted today, having to fight back and to try and come back. Yep, that's the situation which W have put them in all the same. I feel like it's all on Elk and Knight finding big engages now and big DPS after that from Elk. See how much they can do with that.
Exactly that. Towards the mid lane we look once more. Wayward taken a little bit low there as the Achieves come on through, and maybe it can be a repeat of game 1. Elk with the critical mass secured. Maybe this dragon awakening from its slumber can do a little bit more work. Reminder as well, of course, with a soul point for WE, they don't have to take this dragon. They can just look to trade for Baron instead.
Knight's trying it again, hidden as a melee minion. They're trying to hide his own model under one of these hitboxes. Bin's now alone in the front line, separated from his team.
Slice and dice, keeping away for now. We'll get...
Oh, Shun!
Gets cashed! We'll talk about other things, but the fight commences regardless. Smolder comes on through. Damage back is big. Look at Elk's damage. He's just untouched. The Smolder's doing it again. BLG, somehow every game, Smolder and Kindred just come online.
BLG find a fight, and this will tide them over to the 3-item mark. It's probably going to stop the Dragon going over to Team W, which could have been Infernal Soul for them. Haven't really stopped to talk about that in terms of the Dragon stacking too much. They'll get themselves resets. The death timers from W won't stop them from being there at the actual objective itself, but it will stop them from being able to set up around it. Actually, as it stands, I think this is... Whoa, guys, this is a mistake. You have great damage, but you're not going to be able to go fight for the Infernal Soul if you take this Baron. They're low enough HP. This could be a huge mistake by BLG.
Fofo could do a lot of work. The first set of the threaded volley doesn't get that much value down. Does start to go forwards, does Bin. Still pretty low. Reminder, there is no option to use the Dominus. Teleport, now flying on through. Into the backside goes Bin. Fofo's dead. Bin does it. He doesn't even need to use the flash. Now Wayward needs to go over the wall, and without the mid laner, it'll be a 4v5 at what would have been Infernal Soul, and WE collapse in 2 critical moments, 2 games in a row.
That is a mistake followed by another mistake. BLG going towards Baron should have been enough for Wayward to delay them and stop them getting resets, but Fofo dying means that suddenly WE, I don't think they can fight for this Dragon. The first death of the game on the Talir is in the just most drastic of mistakes. Fofo has flash, could have just hidden himself backwards, stopped BLG from roaming over towards the Baron. Now WE give up a shot at Infernal Soul. They give up the fight in the mid lane. That's not really part of that mistake, I suppose. I feel like this is actually a pretty good start to this fight, because you separate out the front liner. The problem here is that Wayward goes in when the rest of his team is not on the same page. Wayward, I think he had a great first game. Second game's been a bit harder for him. He's been playing on the utility kind of Gragas. And him not being quite on the same page as the rest of the team, huge mistake for them, and we're back into the fight.
He thought he had the pick on Shun, but Shun is quick enough with that Lamb Spike to keep him alive. Has now got the Lord Dominic's regards, and that double pen combo on Kindred feeling a little bit better indeed. They've picked up an Infernal Dragon, they've got Baron to work with, and a lot of standing gold to claim.
WE had the advantage at 2 items because you have like double Frozen Heart, huge armor stacking, and your carries are in a great point too. Now at 3 items, BLG have the advantage. They have double Lord Dominic's regards on their AD carries, and you can see that what happened in mid lane is Stay walked into the Renekton and had everything around this, was just throwing everything at Stay's mistake, who had a good game 1 on the Jhin. This second game here really struggled.
You could see what the angle was, thinking, we might be able to get a pick, and just gets W'd by Renekton, and it was immediately a bad decision. Having stolen away the blue buff, I get that you're trying to find a way to come back in the game after basically handing BLG an option back into this, and we literally said, the stacks are in, can Elk do it again? Yeah, he can, with a little bit of assistance from the rest of the team, let's be fair. BLG finding their moment, and a couple early games have been something I'm sure that we're going back to the drawing board and researching and VOD reviewing. But all the same, the mid-late games, the comebacks, the utilization of the scaling has been pretty exceptional from BLG as well. They are not a team to go down quietly.
They aren't. The problem is, I mean, okay, these are exciting games. This is still BLG, who we expected to clean sweep the LPL. This was meant to be the team which directly upgraded from last year after being the second best team in the LPL across the entire year last year. They lost a pretty shocking series versus IG. They've had a couple of games here and there where we've been worried about them. And now the fact that they can't cleanly close games, and actually beyond that, they're actually struggling to get ahead in some of the games too against WE. This is a problem for them. This is not the tone of the conversation that they would have liked. If they walk away today with 2 comeback victories, that is a skill set which is important for them to show. But it's not the one which we're asking for them. On the other side, WE, it's great that they can play out in this early game. I think that Fofo's had a good series. I think that Stay on the whole has been pretty good too. Iwandi has had 2 fantastic games on the Bard and then onto the Nautilus as well. There are points of real like positivity for them, and the fact that they're doing that against BLG makes it matter that much more.
Attempting a little pick there on Ben, but he's swift enough to get out there. The slice and the dice do enough to keep him there, and that particular roll does not go the way of WE. On has got the ultimate rolling, the Unbreakable Will on for now, flashes over the wall. The Ignite on, we'll get him down to about half HP, but not too much more. Knight in the form of Renekton will send a clone towards WE.
So now you have a couple of those big tools from WE down, and there's still members in the enemy jungle. So you have a lot of flashes from engaged champions on BLG. You've got Knight just around the corner. What can he do?
On just about got the aftershock up to keep himself alive. The burn from the Leandry's not quite enough, and the Lamb's Respite popped. On was really worried about going down from Shun there, so they get away with it.
Really, we had Leandry's burn on him. That's what he was trying to stop. Doesn't end up sticking around for the healing, but the extra savior ends up allowing him to get out alive. But BLG, it felt like they had a great angle there. They had, again, Knight in a fantastic point. Another thing we have to talk about now is, okay, so BLG, they were just in the enemy red side jungle using the last of, the pressure they had left over from that Baron. They've dropped a lot of wards down. How many times can we mention this? When you're moving around the maps like this, when you've got a lot of supports, we can drop wards. If you return to them with, every teleport in the game available from all of our solo laners, that could be the game-changing play. I think that WE, they're in a difficult spot now. They're very much behind in terms of damage, and that's going to be hard for them to overcome. But with a good enough flank from Wayward, maybe it's possible. He's not really playing the flanking build this time. Even with punts onto Shun earlier in the game, it's not ended things off. But it might be the start of something.
They might need a bit more than something. They've got themselves Infernal Soul, which would be, as I said, more than something indeed. BLG are ready and raring to contest for this, you feel. 40 seconds until that will be required. Knight in the mid lane looking to contest for wave shove.
We get ourselves back into somewhat of an even playing field. I wonder, the 4-kill Nautilus controlled the early game, couldn't snowball it to the death though. BLG, they've clung on, fingers digging into the brickwork, trying to stop themselves sliding down, and they clawed their way up that mountain face. Yet again, a mountain's made out of brickwork. I don't think they are either way. It's a very strange mountain, but
Smolders are made of stacks, and he's got over 330 odd of them right now, so he's doing quite a lot of
ults
work.
into mid lane. Fofo trying to block off the team. Bin not there to front line, and neither is On right now.
The Super Scorcher Breath just begins to shred them. Look at the burn into the backside. Goes Bin. Smolder's mother comes flying forward, and it's just a family affair. Look at this one. BLG will wreck them all. Moment to moment, the health bars begin to dwindle. The executes begin to come on through. It's not an Elder Dragon, but it's an X-Bex thing. And Elk has been doing it for the last 10 minutes.
How do you out-team fight BLG? So many teams have tried this year, and they've tried to do it from ahead, behind, every state in the game. It feels like BLG are just inevitable. It's not always been the cleanest games. We've asked them to close games a bit more cleanly, but it hasn't needed to be that today. They've ended up just fighting the way back from the brink.
Once again, Smolder just breathes all over him, and the fire cooks him to a crisp. Nothing to be done. WE, a valiant series, some solid moments in these games, but the mid-late fights, Smolder hits critical mass, and the game is just unplayable.
I have seen enough of this champion in the LPL now. This must be a first-round ban, or traded for a dominant bot lane that cannot let him play the game. At this point, I'm pretty confident saying that LPL Smolder will change the meta to the point where you cannot play against this champion. We have fantastic AD carries within the region. In fact, the very first broadcast day we did of the LPL, we traveled over to Ireland, I did with the Sheen. We had a pre-show plan, and we were talking about some of the matchups. The other thing we talked about was, hey, Smolder's coming out. He's an AD carry. He stacks up into late game players. AD carries in LPL are our best role, on the whole, historically. LPL AD carries are fantastic. Think of the likes of Wejav, Uzi, think of Elk now, Ruler who's joined us too, Viper who played here as well. Many players from, obviously, Korea coming over to play here too, but it does feel like this champion is just too much of a comfort pick for the way that LPL plays the game. I do not think you can allow Smolder through in the LPL.
And I think that's also after we saw triple aggressive AD carries banned away from Elk. And that first game, you saw them hover the Smolder. They could have first picked it. They could have been the ones in that scenario. And they don't go for it. And it's a bit unfortunate. WE, I'm sure, will see the failings of this one, and Elk will brush his shoulders off and show, yeah, probably don't give me that champion. But still, BLG moving to 9-1. Wasn't clean despite it being a 2-0. Look a little bit deeper than the scoreline, and you'll see that was not an easy game.
No, it wasn't at all. So that's going to do us for LPL today. If you missed this live, then or you'd like to watch back on stuff, it will be in Twitch VODs. I think you can actually check the Twitch VOD right now. Upload it to YouTube as well. And also tune in this time tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
Because we'll be doing this again. Of course, there are sometimes some tech issues when we figure out in the first game of the day whether who or Billy Billy is playing nice today. We ended up with Billy Billy and ended up doing okay, so that's okay. And yeah, we've ended up cracking 2,500 followers, which is really fucking cool. It's really cool to be supported in doing what we're doing. If you enjoy us, please leave a follow. If you have the room to drop a prime or something like that, obviously means an awful lot. And thank you, Sam, for joining for the cast. It's always enjoyable to do that.
I'm going to try that again in English. Caster, by the way. I'm going to try and kick off my own stream for a couple hours as well,
okay,
so I'm
cool.
going to go do that.
So Sam's stream is in the title.
Come join me.
I might stick around to do a VOD review too, because I haven't done one for a while, but once we're done, I'll go raid him on his stream. If you could leave him a follow, if you could leave me a follow, it's obviously very important to us. And yeah, check us out this time tomorrow, and we'll be here for more LPL stuff. I need to figure out what game I'm going to